Most boss fights have a tendency to be rubbish these days. Back in the day, it used to be alright to just hit things in a weak spot 3 times, but now they've just become these weird, trudging things that go on forever. There are a couple, though, that still get things right, and my favourite boss, actually in a long time, was in the surprisingly fantastic Binary Domain, a game which is possibly better than Gears of War, and yet nobody actually bought it. Almost all of the boss fights were fantastic, but the one that always sticks in my mind was this giant mechanical spider thing, which the scale of it and the detail as it kind of climbed around and attacked you and fired lasers and rockets and all sorts of things was just absolutely mind-boggling. It blows pretty much every other boss fight I've played on the Xbox 360 right out the water.
My favourite antagonist in a game is Lieutenant General Shepard from Modern Warfare 2, mainly because I didn't get to kill him and I really want to. There was a hardware error involved and basically I had to go and watch the whole thing on YouTube. Now, killing him might not be that complicated a process, but it's just a catharsis thing, just give me closure.
My favourite boss of all time is probably the end from Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. It's just unique in every way. It doesn't, like most boss battles, they shove you in a room and it's very clear what you need to do. This is the mechanic. There's a specific mechanic it will focus on, whereas the end was just kind of like this open world boss battle where you need to figure out which of your abilities you are best suited to tracking him and to getting a bullet in him, and which of your weapons are best suited for it. So you could just crawl around and listen for him breathing. If you shot his pet parrot, it would send him into a frenzy and he'd forget years worth of sniper experience and start making sloppy mistakes, and you could exploit that, or you could just hang about for a really long time, and because he's an old man, eventually he'll die of old age.
Probably the hardest I've ever fought, but the most rewarding. It was a recent one from Fight Night Champion. There's a guy called Isaac Frost at the end of the kind of story mode, and he'd just been like an ass all the way through, just for no reason. Beat the hell out of your brother and was really mean to you the whole way through. So at the end it was like really raring to get this guy. And it's so difficult fighting him because you have to do 12 rounds with him, and if he punches you like 3 times, you go down. It's like your chin is made of glass or something. So you have to spend like 2 rounds just running away from him, 3 rounds where you can only do body shots, and then another 2 rounds running away from him. And then at the end you have like 5 rounds where you have to knock him out, and it is the hardest thing, but it is so amazing when you finally beat him.
Well, the best boss name is Ceaseless Discharge, but that's not my favourite boss. My favourite boss isn't actually a very good boss. It's the Pain from Metal Gear Solid 3. He's basically some guy who's covered in hornets, and you have to dive underwater. It's not an interesting boss fight. But while I was playing it, there was a power cut in our area. And because Metal Gear Solid has this sort of habit of breaking the fourth wall and kind of messing around with you, it was about 10 seconds before I realised that it was a power cut and that Metal Gear Solid didn't have the power to turn off the lights in my house. I just assumed it was a gimmick and things were going to come back on and he'd be laughing or something.
I hate bosses. I just hate them as a concept. They're just really infuriating arcade hangover where they just decide to break up. They're there for pacing reasons. It's like you go along a bit, you learn a skill, you get a weapon, then you get a boss, and the idea being that's to kind of break the flow, and it's a little challenge for you. And they're still with us. And all that happens is most of the time you just get something that's got like more hit points and a specific attack mechanism, and you have to die a bunch of times until you work out how they die, and it's just massively frustrating, and it just stops me progressing with the game, and I hate it. I'm sure I'm showing myself up as like not being good enough at video games. I'm not good enough at video games, but still, like Deus Ex Human Revolution, classic example of how not to do it, where it's a really awesome game, there's all this kind of choice and options and you learn all these amazing skills, and then there's like 4 or 5 bits where you have to stop dead. Hate that moment where it all goes a little bit quiet, you go into a room and there's a door at the end of it and it's full of like rocket launchers and high explosives, and you're like, oh god, here it comes. I'm going to go through that door, a cutscene is going to play, and then I'm going to be stuck in some arena with somebody who's like 5 times my size who's going to beat the hell out of me. No. Please, game developers, stop doing that.